Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Drew, and I've learned the past doesn't always stay buried. 8 years ago, I walked away from the woman I once thought I'd spend forever with. Her name was Michaela. At one time, I believed no one knew her better than I did. I had proposed, she had accepted, and we were already planning a wedding, talking about children, and deciding where to settle down. I was convinced we were moving in the same direction. I couldn't have been more wrong. When I left, I cut things cleanly. For 8 straight years, our paths never crossed. It felt like we were living in separate universes, completely removed from each other. I wasn't sure if it was luck or fate keeping us apart, but either way, I thought that chapter of my life was sealed forever. Turns out I was mistaken. A close friend of mine was celebrating his wedding anniversary and invited a small group, people who had been there through different seasons of his life. Old college friends, co-workers from his first job, and a few neighbors from the past. I hadn't seen some of them in years, so I was honestly looking forward to catching up. It felt like the perfect chance to reconnect without the chaos of a big party. The event was held in a modest little hall tucked behind a cafe, lit with warm, inviting lights. I remember standing by the snack table with a ginger ale in hand, talking with my friend's cousin about old times. That's when I saw her, Michaela. For a split second, it was like time collapsed on itself. I froze, unable to move or speak, as my brain scrambled to process the moment. She was the last person I ever expected to see again. I had prepared myself to run into old acquaintances, but not her. Not the woman who managed to destroy both my relationship and my career with a single betrayal. I hadn't heard her name in years, and in that moment, I didn't know what to feel. Anger, shock, curiosity. All I knew was my stomach dropped, and the entire room around me turned into background noise. She hadn't noticed me yet, and in those few seconds before she did, my thoughts spiraled. Would this be civil or disaster? Truthfully, I wanted to slip out before she saw me, but I stayed. I stayed and watched my past step directly into my present. Michaela wasn't just an ex to me. She had once been home. Long before we ever dated, we were friends, dreaming, sharing our hopes, piecing together the future like puzzle parts that seemed destined to fit. By the time we started dating, it felt like we were already halfway through a love story. We clicked without needing to explain ourselves. I could tell her things I told no one else, and I believed that kind of bond meant we would last forever. I was 22 when I landed my first corporate job at a rapidly growing tech company. It wasn't glamorous, but I was proud. My boss wasn't just any executive. He was a man I deeply admired. He had built that company from nothing, failing repeatedly but still finding his way to success. He wasn't flashy or loud, but when he walked into a room, his presence carried weight. You wanted to earn his respect. I was eager, determined to prove myself. I stayed late, asked questions, took notes on even his casual remarks. I didn't just want to blend in. I wanted him to see potential in me. Over time, he did. He started inviting me into his office, not just to discuss work, but to talk about life. He shared stories of his struggles, of betrayal, of the lessons he learned trusting his instincts. I absorbed every word. That relationship grew into something meaningful, not just professionally, but personally. I began to see him as a mentor, almost like the father figure I never really had. He guided me, opened doors, and shaped me into someone who believed I could achieve more. I trusted him fully, admired him like a son admires a father. Never once did it cross my mind that this trust would eventually destroy me. When I earned my first promotion, I was ecstatic. It wasn't just a better paycheck or the added responsibility. It was proof that my efforts, sacrifices, and long nights were paying off. Everything seemed to be aligning. My career was taking off, and I was ready to take the next step with Michaela. After 4 years together, I was preparing to propose. In my excitement, I confided in the person I admired most, my boss. He smiled, clapped me on the back, and told me I was making a great decision. He even offered to help me plan something special for proposal. What I didn't know then was that this conversation would turn into one of my biggest regrets. About a month later, everything collapsed. It was an ordinary Wednesday evening. Most of the office had cleared out, but I stayed late to review a client report. Spotting a small mistake, I figured I'd run it by my boss before making corrections. His office light was still on, so I walked in without knocking. We had that kind of familiarity after hours. But what I walked into shattered me. Michaela was there, sitting with him on the couch, hands where they shouldn't have been. Her blouse was half undone, his wedding ring still on his hand. For a moment, no one moved. Michaela scrambled to fix her clothes, pale and shaken. He straightened his tie like it was just another meeting that had run long. I didn't say a word. Couldn't. I turned and walked out, hands trembling so badly I struggled to hold my keys. The memory hit me later. I had introduced him once, when Michaela brought me lunch at the office. Just once. I was proud to show her off, never imagining that tiny moment would plant a seed of betrayal, that the man I trusted would see the woman I loved as something to take, and that she would let him. I sat in the dark that night, unable to cry, unable to sleep. The woman I was going to marry was having an affair with my mentor. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I ended things with Michaela immediately. She tried to explain, claiming it meant nothing, but to me it meant everything. It meant lies. It meant betrayal. And I couldn't live with that. Next, I resigned. My letter was just one line. I won't work under someone I can't respect. I packed my things and left without another word. By nightfall, I was gone from the city altogether. No forwarding address. No answer calls. Months later, a trusted coworker reached out. On that call, I learned the affair wasn't new. People had suspected it for a while, whispered behind my back. No one told me. I had been walking around blind while everyone else knew. It was humiliating, like I had been the punchline of some long-running joke. He admitted he hadn't told me earlier because he feared the fallout. The years that followed were about rebuilding. New city, new circle, slow healing. I buried myself in work, avoided love, and tried to trust myself again. 3 years later, I finally remarried, not Michaela, but someone who made me feel safe enough to risk love again. With her, I found redemption, not for the past, but for myself. That was my life before the anniversary party. When I saw Michaela that night, she looked older but still striking. A few minutes later, her eyes found me. Her smile faltered slightly, but she still approached as if she had rehearsed this moment for years. "Drew," she said softly. "Wow, it's been forever." "Yeah," I answered. My tone was calm, maybe colder than I intended. Not harsh, just guarded. She told me she was married now. I didn't ask details, just said I was glad. And I meant it. Then she hesitated, glanced down, and admitted she owed me an apology. She confessed she had made a selfish choice, chasing the status and thrill my boss represented. She said she never realized what she had until I walked away. She also revealed something I hadn't known. Weeks after I left, everything blew up. His wife found out. He dropped Michaela instantly, leaving her with nothing. She told me she had taken me for granted, thinking I'd always be there, always forgiving. But I wasn't. Not after that. I listened quietly, then nodded. "Thanks for saying that." I told her that was all. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't open either. I had healed enough to not need closure from her. So I excused myself and walked away. The next morning, I woke up to a text. I didn't recognize the number at first, but the words made it clear it was Michaela. She said, "Hey, I noticed you left early. I was hoping we could talk more, maybe meet sometime." It looked harmless, but it carried weight. She was testing the waters, trying to reopen a door I had long shut. And I'll admit, a small part of me felt something. Not because I wanted her back, but because old wounds don't disappear. They linger, like ashes that still burn if you touch them. But I've lived enough to know the past doesn't offer comfort. It only reopens pain. So I replied politely but firmly, "I appreciate your apology, but I'm not interested in continuing this. Let's leave it there." That should have been the end. But she wrote back again, this time bluntly. "I know you're married now, but I'd do anything to take that spot back." I reread it twice. The same woman who broke me was now suggesting she could just step back into my life, as if she had a right. My response was simple. You made your choice. I've moved on. Focus on your husband, not mine. Then I blocked her. I needed to protect the life I had built. My wife, my peace, my growth. Some doors stay shut not because we hate who's on the other side, but because we love who we become without them. It's strange how something from 8 years ago can still feel raw. But running into Michaela reminded me how far I've come. Seeing her again didn't reopen the past. It closed it permanently. Yes, she apologized. Yes, she admitted she was wrong. But then she crossed the line again, showing me she hadn't really changed. She was still willing to ignore boundaries. That told me everything. I realized how relieved I was not to be the man standing beside her anymore. Relieved not to be the one waking up next to someone who never learned loyalty. Do I wonder sometimes what life would have been if she hadn't betrayed me? Sure. But then I look at what I have now. Peaceful, honest, real. And I know I wouldn't trade it for anything. So, no, there's no place for her in my world. No friendship. No keeping in touch. Nothing. I walked away 8 years ago. And after seeing her again, I walked away once more, this time quieter, with a lighter heart. That's the truth about healing. It doesn't always come with fireworks or dramatic closure. Sometimes, it's simply the calm certainty that you're better off without the person who broke you. And for the first time in a long time, I'm truly okay.